Today I'm excited to be joined by David Pountney, or as most of us know him, DP. DP is a digital transformation and strategy expert with over 20 years of experience. Currently a partner at Vibrance, DP has previously held leadership roles at McKinsey & Company, AKQA Group and Ogilvy. I first met DP when we were shaping the future of one of Australia's largest insurers, helping them expand into new ecosystems like mobility, shelter and work. His ability to drive strategic innovation has had a lasting impact across various industries. DP, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Davo, always a pleasure to see you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Very well. It's a nice sunny day in Melbourne, so I can't complain. Summer's on the way, so it's good.
Yeah. Same in Sydney today. Actually, it was raining and cold this week, so it's nice to have a bit of sunshine back.
Yeah, we're in that time of year.
Yeah. So good to talk to you. Thanks for joining today. Keen to talk about all things innovation. I know something very close to your heart, and I might kick things off straight away by talking about innovation and what you believe to be the secrets of corporate innovation.
Secrets, I mean, do you know the word that I use that comes up a lot, and it's not a very, when I say it's not a very exciting word. In fact, it's one of those words that makes you go, oh, really? And it's discipline. And I think and the reason I say that is that like innovation has a bit of a reputation of being test, learn, a little bit fluid, a little bit loose, often to its detriment. And that's often where it fails to deliver impact. Whereas a structure and discipline around innovation process is extremely effective at being able to drive value. And so I tend to use the word discipline a lot because it's actually about how do you remain disciplined in your approach and methodology, because it's a largely experimentation, test, learn, refine methodology. And how do you stay disciplined in the decisions that you make about whether to continue or whether to perish an idea, for example. It's very easy to get wedded to something that it hasn't got traction, but you need the discipline to be able to say, you know what, we're going to kill that and we're going to move on. And so I wish there probably is another language, like, I don't know, Italian or something, a better word for discipline that doesn't make you go, doesn't sort of have that connotation of like, you know, rigid and difficult. But to me, that is the evolution of good corporate innovation is a disciplined process, a methodology and structure that allows you to run lots of experiments in a disciplined way, kill the ones that don't work, and have a methodology by which to invest in the ones that show real promise. So that would probably be the word I'd use.
Thank you. You straight away got me thinking about when you and I first met a number of years ago. You were working with McKinsey at the time, and you and your team came into our organization, and that's exactly what you did. Is you gave us a really strong discipline that really set us up for success, and actually not only just to innovate individually or at a micro level, but at scale. It was actually, it's not surprising that you say that, given what I have seen, certainly working with you and people around you. It's very similar to, I talk about process, I guess in a similar way, is that is part of good discipline, right? And it's the ability to have honest conversations, have strong governance, have, you know, great processes or whatever it might be, that because innovation is not always, it's not always as fun, as exciting as it sounds. It's not always beanbags and ping pong tables, right? Like it's not loose. If it is loose, you're going to get shut down, or you're going to do it really poorly.
And I think they're like, I mean, thank you for that. I'm also conscious, I think, in that experience, you know, when you first bringing in a level of discipline process, there can be a bit of sort of like, oh, it's not what we, you know. But I think in that experience in particular, it was a really great period of time, and I think we delivered a lot collectively as a team, delivered a lot of value in applying that discipline, and that's why I think that and a few other experiences just make me say that to me is the only way to extract value out of it, is to put that process and discipline around it. Because most I'm actually a bit of a, you know, a critic of corporate innovation in many ways, because I think the way they've been run a lot of times have been way too loose to realize any value, and hence they get shut down, and hence you know, clients need to shy away from them, but which is a real travesty, because they can, when done well, be game changing.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Well, if that's the case, if I think I know the answer or where you might go with this, but if discipline is the key ingredient for success. What's getting in the way? What are the barriers to effective corporate innovation?
Um, uh, you, I mean, there are a number, right? And some of them are so structural and difficult to overcome that it's sort of it makes them very difficult. You know, just I mean, public markets, board structures, risk tolerant. Like, there's lots of things that are hard. But I actually think the one that I think is the biggest watch out is cultural rejection, and you kind of have to really start from the very start of starting an innovation program, particularly with an incumbent large business. Think through the cultural connotations of any decisions you're making and communication around the innovation effort. And the reason I say that is it's very easy to build resentment amongst an innovation team from a core team, because if you don't communicate and set it up right, there's very immediately a perception of, well, I'm working on the core business, which is delivering 95% of the value, yet you've got all this investment, freedom, difference in risk tolerance, ways of working, like, help me square this circle here, because I'm working really hard to keep this core business moving, and you seem to be, not only do you seem to be having lots of fun, but the CEO's up on the stage going, this is the future of our business, and bigging us up, and I feel not only do I feel neglected, I feel undervalued, and frankly, I don't really feel much like helping you out or giving you the tools or capabilities to help, and which is all understandable when you think about it. And so there is a really difficult fine line to walk with how you set them up and how you bring the core business and the incumbent business along the journey with you, whilst also allowing enough freedom and opportunity to explore, take risks, and do things. And it's a very difficult line to walk, no question. But you've got to start out with designing that and thinking that through, else you very quickly get organ rejection. And for me, the most, and we're sort of talking here corporate. We're both a little bit of corporate innovation, but
Yep.
you know, there's lots of different ways innovation can be applied in organizations. But just thinking of this from an incumbent large organization that's going on an innovation journey, the building the thread of the buy-in early with the core and sustaining that, I think, is one of the most important things to longevity and making it work. When you and I worked together on the program we mentioned earlier, you might remember we had this term of, like, we called them angel investors. We just took that language, but we said every initiative needs to have an angel investor from the core business that is passionate about this initiative and what it could deliver for the organization, and where needed will help us unlock assets that the core business has and provide support and unlock blockers to support it. Because ultimately, on paper, large incumbents should be able to do innovation and succeed better than any startup, because they have assets, funding, capital, brand, customers, all of these amazing advantages by which to build new, exciting new entities and businesses. But inevitably, that's the single thing they find really hard to actually free up. Particularly capital, maybe they can, but talent, resources, access to customers, like, those things are really difficult. And so creating this sort of angel investor sponsor kind of role is a really powerful way of helping unlock it.
Yeah, I do recall that. And I probably at the time was so deep in the weeds to really appreciate the value or the strategic intent of that. And when I look back on it, it was actually, and that was built in not only as a mentor, as someone who you could, as someone leading a venture, you could, rely on that person to help unlock access to the business, to give some expertise, to give some external thought. But we had a really strong governance process in place as well, where every fortnight we would assess every venture and whether we'd want to kill it. We had a triple P. It was called. It was persevere, perish, or pivot.
That's right.
Yeah. And that angel actually had an equal vote on that board as well, right? So I think that was, not only were they providing a level of connection and expertise, but they were actually given, I guess you would say, some skin in the game in a way that they could ride the success or steer the success of this venture in just the way that we could as the entrepreneur in residence, or as a executive sponsor, or whatever whoever the other key stakeholders were. So that was actually I probably undervalued the contribution or the strategic value that provided at the time.
And I would say so did I, actually. Like I think it was an idea that came out of the team that we started experimenting with. It was only the more we did it, the more you realize just how valuable that was. And I think the way, if I think about it very just binary, if you don't have the buy-in of the core business for what you're doing, if I'm blunt, why bother? Because innovating within an incumbent environment, culture, structure, everything else isn't easy. And so the chances are someone doing it outside of that structure alone will probably do it better. They'll probably move faster, because you're effectively trying to compete with a startup that is literally sweating their runway, their investor every day and has a driver, versus, in the nicest possible sense, a comfortable team with funding and salary and everything else. So if you look at it like that and you put those two teams against each other, I know which one I would back to win, right? Yeah. Now, that said, if this team has a real connection to the core business and a real access to a customer base and insights and data and a real access to brand, right, well, then that changes the whole dynamic of that competitive landscape. And so it's almost, I've got to a point now, I'm almost as binary as saying, if we don't have a support link into the organization, forget it. It might be the greatest idea on the planet, but we're never going to win if we don't have that. And so that's one mechanism. There are other mechanisms to build support and sponsorship, but that is one that's always stuck with me as being, I thought, was really powerful. Yeah.
And I guess in your experience, you've had the luxury of working with many different clients. So you've seen I'm sure you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm keen to, I guess, unpack if you've obviously seen some examples that work better than others, but have you seen some absolute, I'll say dog's breakfast? Like, where have you seen have you got examples of, and you don't have to name companies, of course, but really ineffective innovation where it just hasn't worked? And I'm probably just more keen to understand what were the themes or what were the kind of underlying drivers that you saw, particularly if they are different from some of the themes that you've mentioned that can enable success.
I mean, look, the sad part, and without, I think generally quite an optimistic person. The sad part is there's probably more failures than our successes. Mm-hmm. Right?
Agree with that.
Right, which is a really sad place to start and to find.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways corporate innovation is going through I think often talk to you, because almost see these phases, like these eras of corporate innovation, from the sort of lab that was built in reception with a glass window for everyone to see people sticking notes everywhere, and it's very theatrical, to large scale programs that weren't well run or structured. And so there's been, and look, I mean, that's just, to me, they're all learnings. As long as you're learning from them and realizing that didn't work for these reasons, what would we do differently? Fine, right? That's all part of innovation. It's part of life. But if I just went with what are the thematics I think that matter the most and maybe were absent in innovation programs that didn't survive or didn't do well over time, I'd say one is ambition. Like, the ambition of your innovation function needs to be significant enough that it matters to that organization and matters to the board. And so now I always think, and this is a great person I work with, a lot of innovation in the US. You might remember Tanguy Caitlin. Do you remember Tanguy? We brought him in a couple of times, and he was a great guy, brilliant guy. And I'll never forget, the thing he stuck with me the most that he said was, if the revenue from what you're doing is not going to be 10% of total revenue in the next 3 to 5 years, I wouldn't even bother. In other words, unless you've got an ambition for what you're doing to be a significant addition to this core business, it'll never get the support, it'll never get the funding, it'll never get the longevity, it'll never get the buy-in that it needs to survive. And so you've got to start with an ambition that's big. Otherwise, it just, we've seen the movie play out.
Yeah.
It just won't get, and you understand why. It's not about being critical, but like, unless you can see a pathway to having 10% of revenue, why as a board, as a CEO, as an executive, you're going to keep putting investment into it when you could be putting it into your core business, which delivers 99% of your revenue? So that's one. I think size and scale of ambition, the lack thereof, I think it can be a major failure point. And then I think the others we've sort of touched on. The second I then said is discipline, structure, process, that it is being built with a governance and a process and a structure around it that frankly recognizes that this thing is getting investment, and we need to see the signs that our investment is starting to deliver the value. Now, you've couple that with a long-term view in innovation. I mean, Fred, my colleague at Vibrance, he talks about the fact that innovation programs don't often start returning real revenue until 7 years in. Right now, it's a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot of patience.
It's a lot of patience. And look, you can get lucky. Some things will return revenue quicker, and so but just take an average period of time, and it's not a bad horizon to think about in terms of 7 years. And so you need to demonstrate that you're on a pathway to delivering value consistently if you're going to expect any commitment of funding, attention, strategic intent, all that prioritization. Now those can be, they don't have to be pure revenue return. They can be take up, they can be customer stickiness, they can be a number of metrics, but you need the discipline to be able to show, here's where we're going, here's what we've learned, here's what we've done. And so otherwise, either a CEO change, a board change, an economic climate change, within 2 years, your funding's gone, the whole thing's been disbanded, and it's all been a waste of time, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. That was going to be my next question. From what you said, I think my understanding is the average tenure of a CEO in Australia is about 6.5 years or something like that. So inevitably, you are going to go through a level of change that is significant for the direction of the business. Probably one every year, to be honest, in a large organization, because that's just how the cycles work, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've identified a gap here, which is there's this element of patience that is required, but on the other end of it, there's this element of those that are in it. In the book Pirates in the Navy, they talk exactly about this, that you've got to play the game. You just have to play the game in a corporate, because the business needs to be your best friend. If they're not your best friend, then you might as well just stop, right? Because for exactly those same reasons. But so if you're not continually showing the value, showing the growth, showing the potential of what it is that you're doing, you're never going to, the business is not going to listen, because they've changed 1,000 times. They've restructured, they've got a new board, new CEO, new director, whatever it is. So there is elements of, I think, just sort of stripping back what you've just said, there's elements of just, you do need to play the game to make sure that you're continually showing value. And that's probably, as an industry, I'd say innovation as an industry or as a cohort within the corporate sector, particularly in Australia, has not done particularly well.
I'd agree.
In my experience.
I'd agree. And that, again, that's the link to it. Like, if you're leading an innovation effort in a large business, you better be pretty buttoned down to be able to talk about, what have we learned? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why have we made the decisions we're making? What are the signals that we're seeing that leads us to believe that the money that you're investing in our effort is going to return really material value for this business in the future? If you're not buttoned down on that, then and also if the board and the CEO aren't asking those questions of their innovation team, then it's unlikely to stick and get longevity. And I think that's probably fair and reasonable. I mean, it's not an unreasonable ask either, I don't think. But I think, to your point, I don't think historically innovation efforts have come at it that way. I mean, I'm generalizing, of course, there's exceptions.
Mm.
But I think that if I think talk about the evolution of kind of innovation as a function of discipline, I think that's what we have learned from the last era, that you can't afford to be loose. You got to be structured. So that would be the second discipline. And then the third, I would just say, was what we just talked about. Buy-in, connection with the core. Like, I just keep coming back to, like, the thing I always come back to is the only reason you're going to win in this race to build this is because of the brand, capital, customer, everything else you have, industry not going for you. So you've got to leverage that. If you're not leveraging it, forget it. Like, what makes you think you're going to win, other than maybe funding? But even funding, I'll probably get funding in capital markets and buy in more than I will possibly by being able to guarantee I'm going to get funding from a corporate budget every couple of years. So the buy into the core, and then they all link, of course, right? It's like they're all linked. The ambition that this is important for the core business, the discipline that it holds its own with the core business level of scrutiny and discipline, and the actual buy-in of the individuals and the culture. Where innovation fails is because, in my mind, those three things, either all three are there, in which case, or even probably two of three, you're going to struggle. I think they all three.
Yeah, I would agree. We might switch gears a little bit and talk about a question that's particularly relevant in the current cost of living crisis that we hear a lot about. We see it as consultants. Is consumer spending is certainly starting to tighten. Business spending is starting to tighten. Keen to understand, from your perspective, you've worked in some very large organizations. You've worked for a top tier McKinsey premium service. You're now working for a more boutique organization in Vibrance, equally premium service. But I'm keen to understand, probably less mouths to feed, in your experience, and if you think about the people listening to this are leaders in corporate innovation or with inside corporates, is how can you innovate affordably on what is a constrained budget, inevitably across the board at the moment, across the industry, without sacrificing quality or impact? Or maybe the first question is, can you? Second, how?
Yeah.
If you can.
Well, I mean, I would say what excites me the most is it's never been a better time to innovate efficiently, right? I mean, just the AI tools and capabilities we now have to do expression of interest testing, to build prototypes faster, quicker than ever before, to access customers or potential customers in research methods at scale. I was having this slight tangent, but like, this is the first time I've said it in a sort of recorded environment, but I was saying the other day how AI is helping create a new category of research that is somewhere between qual and quant.
Yes.
Because like, you can now do more qualitative research at scale than you used to be able to do, because and the reason being, you can use, and we've been playing around experimenting with some of the kind of AI assisted conversational tools. I can now run an interview with an individual that will adapt to the interview and everything else and capture qualitative things without needing an interviewer. Now, again, this is very experimental. How effective is that? What bias does it bring into? Do you get the right connectivity? I'm not saying it's not a solved thing, but somewhere, therefore, we have got a research method that we've never had before that allows us to do scaled insight cost effectively. And so many levels, like, it's never been to do innovation. There's never been more efficient tools and capabilities available to you. And then we're just in this, you've got to experiment with them, you've got to try them. It's not, I'm not going to sit here and say AI is solving every problem. Of course it's not. But gosh, AI and low code and no code tools, which is an area that I'm particularly excited about. And frankly, the combination of those two things, amazing, right? Look at the efficiencies that we have now to test ideas and concepts and speak to people and build prototypes, and amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah. So I don't think there's been a better time. I would struggle to find a better time to run efficient innovation programs.
Yeah, it's a really good perspective. I was actually talking to a friend on this podcast recently, and he was talking about he's a designer by trade, and he was talking about similar application of AI. He got to a point where he had an AI interviewing an AI, because he was able to develop using real qualitative analysis, develop a persona of a consumer, and use an interviewing tool. And he said there's similar pitfalls. It's not always gospel, but what it is a steer, and it does give you elements of scale and speed and efficiency that, like you said, we've never really had in history, right? Without deploying individuals to do one-on-ones, and it is quite inefficient and archaic when you think about the way that we do qualitative analysis, and still has its value. You don't want to write any of that off. But I agree, it is definitely changing. If you're looking for a steer for something, there's probably never been a better time to be able to learn about that, a hypothesis you have, validate it, invalidate it, whatever it is, through, like you said, through tooling and no, AI tooling and no code. The combination of those things, you're spot on. Is you can, if you've got a hypothesis, you can test that qualitatively or quantitatively today. To be honest, like you could actually get an experiment in market this afternoon, and have the results of that overnight, right? How cool is that?
How nuts is that? I mean, that is literally in the last 2-3 years that this is being able to become possible. So it's bloody brilliant. And I think we were talking about personas in the office this week actually, and exactly that. I mean, personas, we know they have a lot of value to help ground you in kind of customer needs and kind of orientate that way, but they could be quite time-consuming efforts historically, a lot of research, and then you put these beautiful posters together and Whereas like now, to build a persona, you can do it really quickly. And then the provocation I was given from the team this week was like, so how do we bring that to life? Sure, we can do a poster, or we could do an AI avatar, or we can do and create a persona, because they are just personas, and just create a 5-minute persona that talks to you and tells you about their needs. I mean, how much more impactful is that to resonate with? I've got this artificial persona. I know it's artificial. It's just a communication mechanism to tell me that this is the real feelings and insights of our target audience and our group. There's far more compelling ways to bring that to life than a poster now. And we're still experimenting with all this. We've tried a few things that have worked really well. Some things have fallen a bit flat. That's fine. But it's for efficiency drivers, amazing. I couldn't be more excited and daunted in the same breath. It's like the excitement is amazing, and I love playing with all the new stuff. The daunting stuff is just as I think I've played with something that's leading, something else comes out. I'm like, far out. I thought I just mastered this thing, and now I got to master this thing. So it's exhausting, but it's better than being stagnant.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is good fun. Then again, this is probably links on to the next question, is around emerging trends. What are you seeing that is, if you've got some other examples, that is really exciting you at the moment, based on what you've seen through your career?
Maybe
I'll frame it around what do you believe leaders should be focusing on right now to make sure that they're not falling behind?
I mean, it's sort of I want to come up with something more interesting than AI and technology at the moment. And maybe there are, but it's just like, it's hard to ignore, and it's so powerful. It's so fundamentally changing so much stuff at the moment that you have to be in it. And I think the thing that we have learned within our business, you just got to experiment, and you just got to start using it. And no one knows where it's going to take us, or what it can unlock. But the only thing I do know is that if you don't start playing with it, you're never going to find out. And so we have set ourselves as a business a sort of thing of, we literally ask now, what experiments are we taking this week with some of our clients on doing things? And we do this very openly with our client. Like, we can experiment by utilizing this tool, or trying this, or going with this approach. But so we're trying to get and this is very much eating our own dog food, right? We talk about innovation being experimental and learning. Well, then we as a service provider, for want of a better term, also need to be experimenting and learning, so that we're delivering the best possible value and solutions and approaches to clients. So we're trying to hold that bar. And I think that for any leader who really wants to stay ahead and kind of innovate and go where the world is going, the bar on experimentation is higher than ever. The thing I've been experimenting a lot with in the last couple of weeks has just been using various AI tools to help write code to extend low code, no code environments. Far out. I mean, it's it's buggy at times, and I get frustrated with it at times, and sometimes, but like I've just been able to build things. I would never consider myself a developer. I've got a very basic, I know how to code at a very basic level, but I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a full-time coder. But I can do enough now that I don't need one to build very simple applications that I need and changes that I need. And we're only at the start of that journey. I mean, I'm just using free Chat GPT to do this, and it's got me a long, long way to build some applications and little things and experiments with clients for like half an hour's prompting and experimentation.
Yeah, how cool! How cool! Very good. Well, then maybe that links in with an evolving mindset. So if we think about, if you can look back on your career, keen to understand how your approach to innovation and transformation has evolved over that time.
It's sort of, I would say my kind of a career arc was very grounded in data and the importance of kind of personalization and delivering experiences, communications that mean something to that individual as much as possible, right? So that was kind of the data grounding. I then moved more into kind of technology and putting all that together, putting design and tech and kind of innovation technologies, new creative technologies together to deliver those experiences. That was the next kind of chapter of my career. And then the third most recent sort of chapter of my career has been taking all of that, but doing it programmatically at scale with clients. So how do you do that? So it's been large scale transformation, everything else. And so, I've learned a lot, I guess, along that journey. And sort of the nexus, I guess, of Vibrance is putting all those various things together. But the thing that I think the thing that sticks with me in everything I've just said about the excitement of tech and AI, the cut through of empathy and personal connections and personal experiences is going up, or the value of that is going up. So I said on a podcast a while back that you could argue that knowledge is getting commoditized, increasingly commoditized, right? No, I'm not big, just accessibility, availability, everything else. So, and here's the thing I worry about, right? You only got to go on YouTube and find a load of videos telling you how to write your LinkedIn posts automatically and stitch together workflows to do automated LinkedIn posting. And I'm like, I don't think I want to live in that world. I don't know that I want my LinkedIn, because play the movie forward. Is that all we're all going to do? Just like have the bots populating LinkedIn and social feeds with automated content and experiences? It's not it's not that bad now, but it's not, you can play the movie forward. It's not going to be a fun place to be if that's how we're all generating our content. It's all going to look the same. It's all going to be pretty bland. It's all going to be non-emotive. And so therefore, to me, well, then the personal experiences, the unique experiences, the crafted experiences are going to matter more for customers. They're going to matter more for businesses and organizations. They're going to matter more in the workplace. And they're going to matter more in how you transform an organization. The automation and all that has a role to play, sure. But there's something in the one-to-one, the conversations we're having, everything else, therefore, that is even more valuable than ever has been before. And so that's the thing, I think, for us, for Vibrance, for just where even our industry goes as service providers, if we want to say consulting, like if that personal journey and that personal connection, that personal human empathetic component isn't a part of what we're doing, like that to me has to be at the heart of it all, because the rest can actually be increasingly automated for good and for bad, and so that's what I want to put a real premium and value on in what we do. I think that's going to become more important.
That's really, really interesting point, and I hadn't necessarily played forward the whole and we'll focus maybe just on social media is I think part of what you were talking about around generation of content and increasingly becoming automated. If the bots are starting to create everything, just the word social is almost removed entirely from social media, right? Because it becomes like it is commoditized, right? Is that everything's going to be the same, everything's going to read the same, it's going to look the same. Even if you play that across channels, there's emerging, we've already seen the tech being released earlier this year. I don't know if it's available at scale yet, around creation of videos, right? That look, I mean, we know about deepfakes, but like you could, it's not just about written content. This expands across numerous channels. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because you and I see it every day on, whatever channels it might be. It might be on LinkedIn. If you then apply that at a very personal level on some of the bigger platforms like Instagram and Snap and whatever, it becomes really interesting. If people are actually not really interacting with people anymore, you end up with this kind of robot war echo chambers, that people maybe lose interest, because they're like, that's actually, I know that's not a person.
That's right. We were playing with, you probably have too, with Notebook LM, the Google one that creates any document or content into a brief podcast, right? I mean, it is mind blowing. Like we put some of our growth orienteering articles through it, created colleague Pete put it through it, created a 5-minute overview. It talked about our articles with these 2 American presenters, kind of going back and forth talking about it. I mean, it was absolutely mind blowing. I did a great job of it, but it felt manufactured, didn't feel real and human. So it was an effective way of communicating or distillating a large amount of information into a new media form that I could consume and learn through. Great.
Yep.
But I would never choose that podcast over, I'll give you extreme example. I started listening to Miss Me, the Lily Allen and Makita podcast on BBC Sounds. I mean, which is just 2 women talking about what's like happening in the world, and the journeys that they go through as individuals, and just now as young women that have grown up and have lived in, like, I have so I get in my car and I got a choice of what I listen to. I can listen to a generated AI talk about some theoretical thing, or I can listen to someone's real human articulation of the things that, and I know which one I'm going to pick. And maybe it's unfair to compare those 2 things. Maybe it's unfair to put them in the same bucket because one is doing a different job than the other. But there's just something about I think the premiumization of that real experience could go up and up and up. Whenever the other experience comes really commoditized. I don't know. I haven't figured it out, Dave. I wouldn't profess to.
No, none of us have. No, I hold a similar theory, because I often have these conversations with friends around like AI. Where does humans' competitive advantage now come in? Like, how do we maintain that we not are still in control? Well, there's elements of that, but how do we live in a world where AI is ubiquitous, right? And is kind of has a role on so many things. And one friend says we need to go back to digging more stuff out of the ground. Another friend says, my belief says something different. My belief is, I think our competitive advantage as humans is creativity is the word I use, but it probably links strongly with what you said around personalization, around that human element. Maybe it's hard to articulate. It's almost an X factor that we have that computers can, I'm hoping they can never have, which is it's connection. Maybe that's what it is, connection or human connection. Something there I think is cool.
And so therefore, I think the thing for us to think through is, both in our own organizations, businesses, things that we're building, how do we make sure we never lose that? Or how do we make sure that we put that at the center of what we do? And then even in an innovation, if we're thinking about new organizations, new products, new tools, new services, what role does the human connection play in that service? Because otherwise we think about moats and competitive moats. Well, I can build services that scale automatically and in low code, no code environments and AI, but then so can someone else. So where's my differentiation? Where's the human differentiation? And that maybe is an interesting question to be asking as we think about product design and business design going forward. What's the human differentiation in our product or service? Which is very much flipping on its head what we've all been trying to do in digitizing for the last decade. So I know, but maybe that's the era. Maybe that's exactly the challenge going forward. So
yeah, we shall see. So maybe then we're talking about beliefs. What do you have a long held or a short held belief that is somewhat against the grain? I'll say an unpopular belief, either against traditional or widely accepted practices or methods or whatever it might be. I'm keen to understand, particularly within the realm of innovation.
Yeah.
Do you have a strong belief or a somewhat strongly held belief that might be against the grain?
I mean, I think that probably, as we touched on at the start, the context of discipline and the importance of discipline and governance around it is not a strongly, maybe it's not strongly held, but it's not a strongly associated practice with innovation historically. And that's probably the one that I would say, I probably over-index on in a particular direction, maybe for good and for bad, I guess. But I just think it's the only way to drive value effectively. And then the other one, I suppose, related to the three themes I put otherwise, is just if there's not executive buy-in at the highest level, if there's not CEO and board buy-in, far out, it's hard work. Like, it's really hard work to get longevity. We were lucky, actually. The thing you and I worked on, we had CEO commitments and visibility and input, which was brilliant. Yes. God, it was valuable for some of the.
It was,
wasn't it?
Well, again, and they were involved in the governance. Like they actually had the final say on whether it was. They were essentially I'll call it the seed funder, right? So it was the CEO and the CFO. They had to sign off to say, yes, we're going to pursue that initiative, right? Like, yeah. And that was at a pre-seed level. So I think that is like you say, it's a great example of you need the executive team on board, because at that point, although it might be absolutely terrifying for the people involved, which I was one of, and it absolutely is terrifying, not because you're presenting to the CEO, but because you're like, oh God, we're top of mind with the CEO now. Is he going to just shut us down any moment now that we're kind of having monthly meetings with him?
Yeah.
But you need that. They need to know that stuff is happening. They need to know that what they're investing in. They genuinely need to believe that why they're investing in it, what they're investing in. So I think you're bang on about that.
And didn't it elevate the level of rigor that you show up with? Like
100%.
you got to be across your numbers. You got to be sure that you validate. You got to, like, it changes the mindset. Now here's the challenge though. The challenge of getting the CEO and executive involved is sometimes what you get is, well, the CEO is very busy and the executive are very busy with everything else. So getting their time is hard. But that in itself says, well, then the conditions aren't right. Because the ambition or the importance that we're putting behind it isn't big enough to warrant a small amount of time from the CEO and the executive. And that's not being critical of the CEO. It just means that it sends the signal that says it's actually not a priority for this organization. Yeah. The ambition for what revenue it's going to deliver isn't big enough. And so it's no one's fault, but with the greatest will in the world, this is not set up to succeed. So we're probably better not doing it until the environment factors are set up to succeed. And so it's hard. You've got to crawl to be kind sometimes, and just sort of going, it isn't going to resonate.
Yeah, what a great lead indicator. You bang on. Well, we might close up then talking about Vibrance. So you've joined Vibrance, or I'll let you tell the story about your journey to Vibrance. But I'll open the floor to you to talk about and kind of plug Vibrance and what it is, what you do, who you work with, and what's getting you excited at the moment.
Thanks, David. I mean, so the shortest answer is Vibrance. We're a boutique consultancy for one of a boutique management consultancy. It's probably the best way of describing us, although we are trying to reinvent consulting in the way that we approach and the way that we engage and with the way that we deliver, in the way that I think every organization should be. How do you constantly reinvent the service that you provide and the product that you offer, particularly in a world that's changing so fast as this? So we're constantly, we'll use the word consulting because it makes sense, but it's like we're trying to reinvent that. I wish I could find a better term for it. But that's what we are. We're a collective of ex-McKinsey, ex-PwC, and I wouldn't say ex-Strategizer, but strategy, because they're still part of Strategizer global network. So all the sort of theory, tools, and practices that come with innovation, all of the sort of management transformation practices that come from management consulting. We bring that together, and we term what we do as growth orienteering, which is how do you help organizations on a journey from here to realize a bigger growth ambition. So we work with organizations that have big, bold growth ambitions. Innovation forms a big part of that, but it's not the only part. Sometimes you're driving growth from the core. Sometimes you're helping assess M&A opportunities. Sometimes it's in the core, sometimes it's in your core, sometimes it's in adjacency, sometimes it's in new areas. So we help organizations set the ambition, navigate, put in place the strategies to go after it, and execute that to achieve growth. And it's a fun ride.
Wonderful, very exciting, and that's across industry.
Across industries, I'd say we mostly do industries that touch on consumers and customer facing, but we've worked across telco, financial services, insurance. We've done mining. I wouldn't say it's our area of expertise, but we've helped mining organizations build innovation capabilities. We do a bit of B2B, so we're not overly industry specific. I think our expertise is around how to set up the ambition, strategy, and execution to achieve growth, and of course everything of innovation that goes as part of that.
Excellent, thank you. And how do any leaders who want to get in touch with you or with Vibrance, what's the easiest way to get in contact?
Our website's a pretty good place to start, vibrance.au. And then I would say we've got a newsletter that comes out every full moon called Turning Tides. In that, we share sort of our own thought leadership every month, and also feature thought leadership of others that we respect and think brings value. We actually really enjoy writing and producing Turning Tides, and we get pretty good engagement, and that would be probably the easiest way to stay across what we do, because everything sort of anchors off that.
And it actually reminds me, when there's a full moon each month, it reminds me to look up. I must say, I like that you've tied it to the lunar cycles, and one, it holds you to account to do the bloody thing, but also I love that it's actually tied to a physical phenomenon. So I do go, oh, it's full moon tonight, so we must look up, and today's a nice day. So, and I think I got the tides, it was today or yesterday. So last night, today, right?
Yeah, no, it's a full moon today, so our latest edition of Tides came out today. But actually, no, weirdly, just linking back to our thematic, tying it to the full moon was a sort of fun idea of kind of like turning tides of innovation, and that sort of symbol. But actually, just created a discipline which has been really valuable, because now we can't miss the full moon, right? Like you can't put it out a day before, you can't put it out a week late. It has to go out on the full moon. That's the whole premise of our newsletter. And so it forces a discipline which says, we're very thoughtful about, now that Tides has gone out today, from tomorrow we'll be like, okay, what's going in the next edition of Tides? What's the theme? So we can't afford to be sloppy on it. And that it's an unintended disciplinary mechanism that's actually been very effective for us. So it's good,
isn't it? Well, isn't it funny, because you talk in having spent many years inside corporates, often there are these artificial deadlines, and you often go, well, what is that deadline? Do we really need to hit that? Does it matter? Things are stretched, whatever it is. Yours is literally tied to, you're right, it's so embedded in what it is. If it comes a day after, I might look up and go, hang on. I can see there's some black on that moon. That is not, you missed the deadline, right?
Right. We've set an expectation amongst Tides readers that it comes out on full moon. We're not about to drop the ball on that. Like, that's the funny thing is it comes, the hilarious thing is you then can't control what day you send out. So here, let me just roll with this for a moment, right? This is like automated digital best practice versus maybe a human emotional element. If you were designing a newsletter to go out, all logic would say you got to be thoughtful about the day, the time of day it goes out, engagement, everything else. What you certainly wouldn't do is send your newsletter out on a Sunday or
Christmas Day or something,
or Christmas Day or a bank holiday. Like, all common wisdom would say you wouldn't do that. We don't have that luxury. The moon decides we can't control the day, and so we send out newsletters on a Sunday morning, and so we try and play with the theme sometimes, but it'll inevitably happen on a Christmas Day. And but then I go, well, who else sends a newsletter on Christmas Day? No one. So if you want cut through, there's a way of getting cut through, but it's and the beauty is it's out of our hands. It's kind of like it's all down to the moon calendar, and that's about as spiritual as we get with the moon analogy. By the way, we're not like massively into the kind of moon thing, but the randomness of the timing is brilliant.
You're not biodynamic. You don't have like a cow horn buried under your office or anything like that.
No.
Right.
We're not that sort of spiritually connected to it. Not that nothing wrong with being spiritually connected to it, but that's not. No. It's more about a sort of it's a timing and it's just maybe it's a symbol of sort of saying, what are you doing new this month? What are you? It's an opportunity to reflect on kind of what have we done last month? What are we doing this month? So it's anyway. It's been a fun hook to our newsletter. It's good fun.
Good one. Well, DP, thank you very much for joining. I've certainly got three things that stood out for me. Discipline, that has come through really strong as a theme that clearly you've seen work as a lever or an ingredient of success throughout your career. Buy-in, really, really important, not only at a executive level, but also the core business, incredibly important. And I really enjoyed the part where we were talking about connection and that AI is like that conflict of using AI tooling and I guess the application of AI to innovate and make your job easier and faster and more scalable and all these things, but then overlaying an element of we cannot lose that human element of connection, of personalization, or whatever it might be. So I've certainly got a lot out of the conversation. I'm sure leaders following along have as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dave, and well done everything that you're doing with accelerated innovation and the journey you're on as well. It's hats off to you for the journey you're on. It's very exciting.